Well, Wales did what they had to do against Georgia and have won 4 from 4 to top Pool C and set up a quarter-final against Argentina. We can have a chat about their World Cup now with former Welsh winger Alex Cuthbert. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Not too bad. Bit good, you said former, but
I know. I was going to call him out on that.
Andy Rowe's just retired him from international rugby. You absolute Judas, Andy Rowe. Yeah. Apologies, Al. The dream ain't over, is it?
I'm sorry.
The dream's not over yet,
Al,
is it?
Because that was going to be my first question, Al. We know what it's like as players, right? When you're in it, absolutely loving life. When you get dropped, you hate in life. And this might be different to you, and you can be completely honest, or you don't need to be whatsoever. But when you're on the outside and you're looking in, it's kind of bittersweet, isn't it? When your team's doing well, but you're not there with them. How is it for you? Because I know you got dropped at the last kind of moment, as it were, at one of the final hurdles, and that's almost harder to take than not being in or even being injured sometimes mentally, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It was. It took me a couple of weeks to get over it in terms of like, wow, I'm not going to the World Cup, because I just had it in my head from, when I started coming back in that, everything was towards to get to the World Cup, and then to be told not to, it was a tough one to swallow. But obviously, a bit unlucky with that. I had a bit of a niggle actually before South Africa, so I couldn't play that game, and then obviously I was really on the back foot then. Unless
that was a good one to miss, though, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I went and watched the game actually, and it was a pretty. They were pretty good that day, South Africa, and we obviously had a lot of young boys, and it was a tough day in the office, that one.
And just going back to the camp, and I don't want to go over old ground, but I kind of need to ask it. Around the camps in Turkey and Switzerland, we heard there was waterboarding, motorboating, whatever it is, babies cry. Did you not waterboard very well or something? Is that why you didn't get picked?
Yeah, I didn't travel well. No, it was. He wanted everyone to be there that was 100% fit. Like me and myself, Toby, and a couple of the lads, we got injured before Switzerland, so we weren't allowed to go in any of the camps unless you were 100% fit. So, because they were short, sort of, they wanted to make sure that everyone was training fully and burying them into the ground every night, pretty much.
And that's the thing as well, Al. But that your position, right? And it probably is the one position where it's slight anomaly, really, because of the speed and how fast you have to be, and you are so finely tuned. Do you know what I mean by that? As in a second row or back row, you can kind of go in a bit half cooked with a couple of niggles, right?
Yeah, I find with the front five, you can sort of plod your way through a lot of stuff, can't you? Whereas the back, that's back three, especially with, there's quite a few young boys, you really have to be richly on your you've got to be on your money in training, though. You get found out, and then you're like, geez, I don't want to give that upper hand on yourself, so it does push you to like another level. And I think as I've got older, I've sort of just tapered my training, so I always do enough just so I can get to weekends, week to week. Whereas this was just such another level. It was like my body was like, what is going on, So it just took a bit of adjusting.
I love how you say plodded, mate. I was finely tuned. You talk about plodding, Goody.
Are you joking?
You can ask this.
Jim, are you joking?
No, I reckon I was more finely tuned than you. Let's be honest.
Well, that's not hard though. I'll be honest, that's not hard. But I was from the same training regime later in his career as Alex. He said just get to the weekend, so I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and then Friday team run day. I was ready. Let's talk about Wales then. It's an amazing turnaround, and I know it's probably bittersweet for you as well talking about it, and I feel pretty bad saying it, but Jim Hamilton has written Wales off for a long, long time on this podcast.
I've heard.
Yeah, and they are played 4-1-4. Brilliant performance against Australia. The Fiji game as well, some unbelievable moments in there, and then sort of held on. How's it been from, I suppose, are you a fan? Are you a player that you don't hope someone gets injured, but you want to be out there? How's it been for you watching it, and what's the feeling like in Wales? Because it's a massive turnaround from, the despair of the Six Nations, and then, some of the Summer Series games as well.
Yeah, mate, I'll be honest, the Six Nations, it could not have got any worse. And I think we put ourselves, the union probably put all the players in that situation, and it showed, didn't it, in terms of the way we were playing. I think they were expecting Gats to come in and just suddenly it worked straight away, but there was so much off-field things going on. That was probably the reason why our performance was the way it was. But boys all had we all had a quiet sort of belief within the camp that when we're together, we always seem to get better and better because our group was so close. We were quietly confident. I know no one else was, but we were quietly confident that we do quite well in the World Cup. But as soon as we obviously got out of the group, because we backed ourselves against teams like Fiji, we haven't lost to them to a while. I know they played well and whatnot, and Australia are looking in all sorts of trouble there. But we were quietly confident that we back ourselves in terms of our defence. I think it's probably won us a lot of these games, isn't it, over the last couple of games, and then form players like Gareth coming back in and showing his quality, against Australia, and like last week or the weekend just gone, you got someone like Costello coming in out of nowhere and putting a pretty solid performance and beating a Georgia team that were, for them they thought they were going to beat us, knowing that they beat us in the autumn. So they had that confidence behind them, and I think it's sort of building. I think game by game, obviously everyone was like, "Oh, we're lucky to beat Fiji," but in my eyes, you watch 65 minutes, we won the game, really, didn't we? The yellow card, and it changes the game, and people sort of just look at the final score. They should have scored at the end to win. Well, I think if we're a bit cleverer, like Gat said, they're never in that situation. We would have probably won by 30, 40 points in the end. But obviously, Portugal, you look at that game, you make 13 changes in any team. I don't care who you are. It's not going to be clean, is it? So, and obviously, we got the win, and people, typical sort of Welsh fans, oh, they're rubbish, they should be winning by whatever. But I said, geez, we won 2 from 2. People thought we were going to lose to Fiji, and then we had Australia, and then we dust them by 40 points. We're in a pretty good position, and I don't think many teams, I know Ireland are going well, and if we do get a result against Argentina, Ireland won't really they won't look forward to playing us because they'll have all the pressure of, they should be beating Wales. But they have deep in their mind that Wales have knocked them out of plenty of big tournaments and done them dirty of plenty of Six Nations. So our boys will be very, very confident about that going forward, obviously, depending on the result against Argentina.
Yeah, this is awesome, mate. It's great listening to you speak, mate. You've not missed a beat on any of that. Not that we expected you to, but we had Andy Powell on a few times, and there's obviously a few beats that go out a little bit out of tune and stuff like that. But that's for good things. Yeah, we love Powell. He's friend of the show. But it's great to have someone that's so close to the game in Wales, mate. This is an obvious question, right? But I'll let you answer it. Just with the national team, when they're winning and when everything's going well, and you kind of went through the kind of history over the last couple of years where they haven't been winning, it hasn't been going well. How important is it for Wales as a country and for the people living there and the working class and everything that it comes being in Wales, having a team doing well?
It's massive because that's all that people in Wales talk about is rugby, like whether it's down a local club or the Ospreys, Cardiff or anything like that, and then it all just filters to the autumn campaign and then the Six Nations. That's why a lot of Welsh fans, they're big rugby fans, but those Wales games is when Wales stop and they just watch. You've been to games, the atmospheres in that stadium is just nothing like it, is it? And now we're progressing into the tournament. You'll see the amount of red that you'll see now. Like it's just like Ireland. It's like when Ireland play, their fans seem to always travel wherever they are in the world. We know the Irish are absolutely everywhere, aren't they? And they're always behind. I think when Wales do get on a bit of a run, it feeds into the boys, that confidence in terms of, how much it means to people, not just friends and family, but the wider community as well. And like, everyone was writing us off before the World Cup, thinking, this is going to be a rubbish World Cup. And I think it's just really changed people's perspective on, the boys as a group and Welsh rugby as it probably couldn't have got any worse after Six Nations. So this is just the perfect sort of little motivation in terms of people supporting and probably falling back into love with Welsh rugby a little bit, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. Let's look at the game at the weekend then. Obviously, Georgia, it was a game that probably everyone expected Wales to win off the back of what they've done. But the big news, good performance. You mentioned Sam Costello earlier. I thought after, pretty tough first sort of 10 minutes. I thought he played really well after that. Obviously, RWC gets some tries. But the big news, obviously, Gareth Anscombe. We saw his face. He was absolutely devastated. And then Toby Faletau as well with his broken arm. How big a losses are they? And a sub-question to that question is, he's called up Kieran Hardy. Did you not say, mate, you could play back row as well?
Yeah, I did. I just played back row. Anyway, I'd play anywhere to get out there, to be honest, mate. But no, yeah, going back to Toby, yeah, like massive loss. I think he's a sort of like comfort blanket for a lot of players in that squad. You know, sort of, over the years in squads like yourself, you played in a position where, like, when you had that guy next to you, you knew you were going to be, you knew you were going to be in the trenches, and he was a guy that you'd have with you and always rely on. He always seems to do the basics very well and doesn't overthink. There's not the most flashiest of players, Toby, but he does simple things very well. That he makes it look very easy, doesn't he? And he makes players around him then feel comfortable to go and do their sort of thing. Whereas losing someone like that, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. But I do think that Aaron Wainwright has gone well, and he hasn't even played in his preferred position. So I do think he can do a job there. And in regards to Gareth, I spoke to him before the game. He said he felt pretty good, and then obviously in the warm-up something's happened, and he said he's pretty sore, but he's got a lot of power left in it. And I do think, hopefully, that the medics they got there, they're pretty good at getting boys back quickly, and hopefully for Wales' sake that he can take part, and hopefully Biggs is obviously going to be back fit as well, so which would be handy.
Yeah. Why have they called up Kieran Hardy, do you think? Is there something more behind that? Is there lack of depth in the back row? What do you think he's thinking?
Well, then you got to look like who are you going to replace Toby with? There's probably no one else really back row wise. They took all the back row they could take.
Ross Moriarty.
Take him.
Oh.
Yeah. It'd be another one. Obviously, we got a lad at Ospreys called Morgan Morris who's pretty good at number 8 as well. So, but I just don't think he thought he's going to replace him. They've obviously got Wayne that's going to cover 8 now.
Yeah.
You have Jack Morgan come back in. Tommy Rafal has probably played himself into the team now, especially with the injury. And then you still got Tane Basham, which is another 7. And then you got Lydia as well. So their back row options, they've got plenty there. And I think in the backs, he was always wanted to take another back, but just obviously with the 19-14 split, he went with that. And the scrum halves, they've only got 2 scrum halves, and they're doing every rep in training all week. It makes a lot of sense in terms of that, because they've got wing cover with George and Mason Grady. You've got the centre cover with Johnny Williams, Nick Tompkins, Mason George. Josh Adams can also play in the centre as well. And I think you've got Lee Harpen who can cover fullback, and Zamet, I think, who can cover fullback. And I think, I think with the Six Nations coming out, he'll be one that'll be looking to play fullback. So that's another option as well.
You mentioned one player then, obviously one of your teammates, Jack Morgan. We've spoken about him a lot on the podcast before the World Cup, and he's been an absolute revelation as skipper and as a player in a team over the World Cup. Just talk to us a little bit about him, because he's been phenomenal, hasn't
he? He is on another level. I remember signing up for the Ospreys a couple of years ago, and me and Gareth, we live share because we live next to each other, Gareth Anscombe. And within like 2-3 sessions, we were on the way back, we were chatting about the game. I was like, who the fuck is this lad? Like, I didn't have a clue who he was. I was like, he's at every breakdown, wide, mid, like he just seems to read the game so well. And then they said the Scarlets let him go, and I was like, geez, is he just a good trainer or whatnot? And then we played a couple of games, and I was like, this guy is an absolute worldie. He's unreal. He never has a bad game. I've never seen him have a bad game. And even when people say he's had an amazing game, for me, he was like just normal Jack. Like he's got another level. He's got levels to go. That's how good I think he is, and obviously you guys think also.
Yeah, mate, we rate him massively on here. What about as a captain and a leader? Is it one of them where he's a natural leader, or they're kind of moulding him in, and there's no better person to do that than Warren Gatland?
The Jack, he's such a down-to-earth guy. Like, he's one of them guys who play a match, fall home and have a couple of bottles of Red Bulls or man on the ass, fall asleep on the couch next to,
Yes,
he's not one to go out. He's complete opposite to like Zamet, who'd be out, to God knows what clubs and all sorts. But leadership-wise, he's from the front and he speaks to the ref quite well. Yeah, exactly. But he's quiet in his sort of manner in terms of he'll only say a few things in terms of what he wants, and he's always like a next job sort of focus. He's not a guy who's just going to scream and shout at you. He'll obviously just probably grow into it, and they're probably, like you said, they'll probably mould him into sort of, I guess, the captain that the sort of type of bloke he'd be. You know, like sort of Sam Warburton was a little bit like that when I remember when I first started with him. You know, he wasn't the guy that would be shouting and screaming at absolutely everyone, but he just grew into the role. And I guess you just do that for experience, and there's no better experience than the World Cup, is it?
No, certainly not. Let's look forward to the quarter-final then, pal. Argentina, they started shockingly in the group against England, but they've seemed to have got progressively better. And their game against Japan at the weekend, I thought they played some really good stuff. The threats of Carreras and some of the other guys in the backs, it's a strong back line, isn't it? What do you expect from the game?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a worry, isn't it, really, in terms of they've sort of got better with each game, whereas we sort of have as well, but maybe we stutter in a couple of times. But they're going to be physical, aren't they? They're going to know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to probably go after our set piece a little bit, and they look to probably get us a little bit tighter in defence, because we have been known to get a little bit tight, and they've got some serious wheels, haven't they, with that Carreras. He's good with ball in hand, good quick feet. Defensively, I think we're going to be making an awful lot of tackles. I feel like they're going to have the ball a lot and more than us. So kicking game is going to be massive. So whether Gareth's fit or turns the goal kicking is going to be big. I think we're going to be taking a lot of points. Whether we're going to score a lot of tries, I don't think so. I think it's going to be quite a tight affair. But like you said, it's going to be massive up front. Front five is going to determine who's going to win that. And
then crystal ball it. Pretend Alex Cuthbert is head coach of Wales. Who are you picking at 10 this weekend? Gareth Anscombe or Dan Biggar, if they're both fit?
Oh, if they're both fit, I think. Gee, that's tough, that, because I think
your neighbour or a legend, a Welsh legend.
Gareth's like one of my best mates, so I'll probably have to pick him. And but I think they both offer they're perfect. I think they complement each other perfectly. It's like at 10. I think Biggs. I think they worked well in 2019 when they won the Grand Slam with Gareth starting and. His all-round sort of game, flat to the line, a lot of pace. His kicking options in terms of his little birds and snookers options, and then Biggs coming off. I think he can control the game perfectly. With his territory, how he looks for those crossfield kicks, and he's obviously one of the best in the air. So they do complement each other very well. Whether one starts, one on the bench, I don't think it really matters. I think.
But Gareth.
Alex, I was going to ask you about the lay of the land. We've got a load of Welsh people listening to this podcast. What is the lay of the land at regional level with the clubs and stuff like that? Are things looking more positive now?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more settled in terms of obviously last year there was a lot of exodus of players in terms of contracts were a bit all over the shop, and players sort of chose to go elsewhere, and a lot of players wanting to choose to go elsewhere, but not really being that many options, is there? With the amount of English clubs that have obviously gone under and so forth. So I think academies is going to be big, especially the Ospreys. Like since I've been going back, there's me, Justin Tipperick, literally the only boys over 30. The rest are all in the 25. So it's going to be youth for a couple of years. I think we're going to have a couple of years of a little bit of struggle. May get some good wins here and there, but it's going to be obviously a big development. Couple of years down in, especially the Ospreys. I think the Scarlets and the Blues. Everyone's sort of in the same situation, really. So I think once we get through that sort of period, I think hopefully then we can reap rewards with the new rules in terms of only needing 25 caps to play for Wales. That will sort of let the bigger boys who are on the bigger money go elsewhere, and then the youth then will have the younger boys will get more opportunity to play and hopefully develop a bit quicker than what they would if they're playing just Welsh Championship level.
Yeah, there's good lads coming through though. There Jack Morgan's coming through the system, right?
A guy called Morgan Morse played for the Wales 20s, I think.
Morsey boy.
Morsey boy, yeah. He's 18, 19, absolute freak, mate. He's another one coming through that number 8 back row, who's another one that come from, all the back rows come from Wales, don't they? But he's another one that'll be coming through, I think, and having a big year.
Right, last thing I want to ask you then, Lewis Rees-Zammit. I know it's tough to ask you because obviously you're playing
that's all right.
in the same position. It gives you an opportunity now because he looks $1 million. He runs
well.
I wouldn't say
he looks $1 million, Goody. He looks like he's throwing a bit of money at it as a young man.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
building him up, right?
Yeah.
Tell me something that's wrong with him. Has he got hairy back? Has he got bad breath? Has he hung like a squirrel. Like
I could tell you plenty of stories about him, but whether I should say it on here, I don't know. But no, to be fair, I haven't found. Well, there's a few things wrong with him, but to be fair, he's going well. You know, I think when I first got into the camp, I think a couple of years ago, he was obviously very, very young and starting every game. And then obviously I came in and he got dropped, didn't he? But but since then, you know, I think he has really grown up and matured as a player. And I think you can see now he is absolute quality. You know, I don't think there's no substitute for pace, is there? You know, and he's got abundance of that, and he's showing it. I think for Wales, we just need him to get the ball more. So whether his actual position will be winger, I don't know. I think we need to get him the ball a lot more.
Does he need to be a bit careful, though, with everything? And look, I know a little bit about him. He's at Gloucester. I've got mates at Gloucester. You go aesthetically how he looks. There's already been a documentary made on him. I'm a big fan of him. I like the fact he's putting himself out there. It is very different to lads of my generation, your generation as well. But there could be a Gavin Henson story that you know, the kind of similarities around that, and there was no social media when Gav was about, really. Like, is that a worry in Wales? Yeah, thank God. Is there a worry around that, Alan? I know it might be hard for you to answer, but do you know what I mean? Like, maybe not a little bit of advice to people watching it kind of unfold, or do you think he's all right? He's got the right people around him.
Well, I think he's a very big family man. You know, in terms of it showed that obviously in the documentary, and I sort of. You know, you got to give it to him in terms of opening up a little bit and showing what he is about, and he sort of, you know, he says how it was really. You know, he likes to play rugby, but he likes the other side more, and I don't blame him for sort of opening up that, and sort of I think we need to see a few more characters in terms of our game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I
think, like, you know, Marlowe is probably the only other one that really sort of, if you asked anyone about a rugby player who they know, you know, there's not many names they would, you know, whereas football, I know it's a lot bigger, but bigger personalities. And I just think we need to open our game a little bit more to a bigger audience. And I think if you're allowing people to come in and see what we're all about, whether it is maybe showing a bit more about what we do in training and you know, sort of build-ups into the games. I think the Netflix thing with the Six Nations could be quite good. So that would be quite good to watch, and sort of people will understand what actually goes into a test match week and what it is sort of mentally, physically it takes. And with Zam, I think he's just riding that wave. You know, I think at the moment he's the linchpin in terms of in Welsh rugby, but I think he's going to be world rugby after this, isn't he? If he keeps going the rate he's going, and you know, I think Dan Carter's cashed in, isn't he? So why not?
Yeah, Jim, stop being negative about Wales again, Jim.
No, I'm not.
Lewis Rees-Summit, Lewis Rees-Summit.
No. It was more when he did the Sue against Portugal, and then he smiled and he had bigger nashes in than... I didn't even know you could get nashes that big, but if you've got the money, I suppose you can.
Well, we did go to Turkey for training camp, didn't we? So.
Yeah.
Alex, before we let you go, the Ospreys, they're doing something a bit different this year with your home URC fixture against the Sharks, aren't you? You're swapping Swansea for the Stoop?
I think they're trying something new. I think in terms of changing that, we got a good fixture. Obviously, we picked the Sharks. I think for a Friday night game at the Stoop, I think sort of seeing that there are obviously a lot of South African fans in the UK and especially in London. I think, and how well we travelled. I think to Saracens in Heineken Cup last season. I think they're trying something different. Obviously, it's quite good for us, you know, change of sort of scenery, and obviously a good night out after a good win, hopefully. So, you know, I think they're pushing. I think they're hopefully going to push this a couple of times throughout the season and sort of change it up, and hopefully, you know, try and get some new fans in terms of whether you do support Ospreys or the Sharks, but just get involved and come and support.
Was it a bit to do with Boothie wanting to come a bit close to home? Because Boothie's a legend. We love Boothie.
Oh, Boothie, yeah, probably. That's why we don't have a team, then, isn't it? So,
so that's Ospreys v Sharks at the Twickenham Stoop in London on Friday the 3rd of November. Tickets, exclusive VIP experiences and hospitality packages are available now at the Ospreys online ticket office. Mate, thanks for coming on the show.
No worries, mate. Cheers for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Cutty boy. Hopefully, you've still got a chance to be out of the World Cup. If I don't want to wish anyone an injury, but I'd love to see you out there, pal. You still on the list, yeah?
Well, I was, yeah, but I just had a little niggle on early last week, so it set me back a little bit. So,
oh shit!
Well,
yeah,
good.
could have been me
Yeah.
or Hardy, but yeah. Well.
Oh, mate. Well,
Sorry,
you know what,
pal.
Cuthbert? Mate, you know what, Cuthbert? Mate, you've passed your apprenticeship in the media. This is like the start. Like, as in you. What I'm trying to say is you were class. Thanks very much, mate. So all you need to do is add a golf buggy story just to the mix, just to go over some old ground, and then you're in. We'll see you at the live shows.
I got a few worse than that. I just got away with it.
Yes.
Good man. Good man.
All right, no worries.
Cheers,
Cheers,
mate.
boys.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Cuthie
Alex.
boys.
Legend, mate.
All the
Cheers,
best.
mate. Cheers, pal.
Top lad.
bloke. Yeah, he is. He is.
Very good.
He is. He's a good cook as well. I did a thing with him years ago, actually, for Wooden Spoon. Like, we were all, a lot of rugby players were chefs at a Japanese restaurant. He's good at that as well. Great bloke, Cuthie.
I'll tell you what.
Salt of the earth. Loves a few beers. He's got some stories, but I think he's keeping them under wraps for his book.
Yeah, didn't miss a beat on the podcast either. And I say that with all due respect, not that I thought he'd come on and he would be completely guarded, but I think there's an opportunity for I know Sam Warburton's in the media doing his bit, Shane Williams is doing his bit as well, but I thought he spoke incredibly well. And there's a few stories out there. So we'll get him down to a live show when Wales knock Ireland out of the semi-final.
Jim, what
No,
are you talking
I'm an Irish
You're
fan.
trying to
I'm not gonna
redeem
say
yourself in the eyes of the Welsh.
that. I don't need to redeem myself in the eyes of anyone.
You do, James. You've been bagging them for years.
I am.
Now
And
they're
look at
proving
them
you
now.
wrong.
Some might say I'm the catalyst.
Pod. Rugby Pod.